את חלקם אני אוהב, את חלקם אני לא מכיר, אבל מי לא שמע על האומץ של רן? הוא הכי מהיר בחול, הוא הכי חזק בגן, אבל יש לו סוד אחד שפחד הוא לגלות, שהוא כל כך מאוהב באחת הילדות. בלילות קרים עם פנס מתחת לשמיכה הם מדברים, והוא מגלה למה היא בשבילו. כל עולמו מוגן מתחת לשמיכה. אצלנו בגן יש הרבה חבורות, יש כאלה נחשבים, יש כאלה שפחות, אבל מי לא שמע על קופצי הנדנדות? מרים להם כפיים, מלמדים אותם לנחות, מורמים על נס הדגל, גאוות כל האזור. רק לפעמים כשהם קופצים רחוק הם שוכחים לחזור. בלילות קרים עם פנס מתחת לשמיכה הם מדברים, והוא מגלה למה היא בשבילו. כל עולמו מוגן מתחת לשמיכה. אצלנו בגן נפרדים בשמחה, כי היום לא ארוך ונפגשים שוב מחר, חוץ מאלה שפתאום לא חוזרים יותר לגן. אמרו לי שהם רק עברו דירה מעבר לענן. אז בלילות קרים עם פנס מתחת לשמיכה הם מדברים, והוא מגלה למה היא בשבילו. היא בוכה כשהוא מציע לה להיות כל עולמו בערב שלפני המלחמה. אצלנו בגדוד יש המון ילדים, את חלקם אני אוהב, את חלקם אני לא אכיר.
אל תלך, אל תלך מבלי, אל תלך מבלי לומר שלום. כך ביקשתי כשהלכת, כך ביקשתי שנייה לפני שעזבת. אל תלך בדרכים חשופות, זחל רק על קוצים ותשתדל שלא לבכות. כך ביקשתי כשהלכת, כך ביקשתי שנייה לפני שעזבת. לך כדי לשמור, רק אל תלך לי. לך כדי לשמור, אל תלך כדי לא לחזור. תזכור שיש עולם מאחוריך, ורק שתדע כולם גאים בך. מתוך כאב אני כותב לך בנייד. אל תלך, אל תלך כי לא אוכל לשרוד כשאתה לא פה. כך ביקשתי כשהלכת, כך ביקשתי שנייה לפני שעזבת. אל תלך, לא האמנתי שהפחד הגדול יהפוך לאמיתי, כי הרי ביקשתי כשהלכת, כל כך ביקשתי שנייה לפני שעזבת. לך לחזור, לך כדי לשמור, רק אל תלך לי. לך כדי לשמור, אל תלך כדי לא לחזור. תזכור שיש עולם מאחוריך, ורק שתדע כולם גאים בך. מתוך כאב אני כותב לך בנייד. ורק שתדע כולם גאים בך, מתוך כאב אני כותב לך. עכשיו אתה בנו הקרוב של אלוקים, לא תדע איתי שמחות, לא תחבק את הילדים, אבל ביקשתי כשנפלת תשמור עליי ועל כולם מלמעלה.
כשהלב בוכה, הזמן עומד מלכת, האדם רואה את כל חייו פתאום, אל הלא נודע הוא לא רוצה ללכת, לאלוהיו קורא על סף תהום. שמע ישראל אלוהי, אתה כל יכול, נתת לי את חיי, נתת לי הכל, בעיניי דמעה, הלב בוכה בשקט, וכשהלב שותק, הנשמה זועקת. שמע ישראל אלוהי, עכשיו אני לבד, חזק אותי אלוהי, עשה שלא אבחר, הכאב גדול ואין לאן לברוח, עשה שיגמר כי לא נותר בי כוח.
everyone can hear me? Okay. So thank you for joining us for Erev Yom Hazikaron. Just a second. So I muted everyone because just it's going to be easier like that. But the first part of this evening is a conversation. So if you have a question, feel free either to unmute yourself and ask, or just write it in the chat, and we will make sure to ask it when it's question part and to answer your questions. And yeah, so we are going to start now. I want to welcome Sarah Lee Elazar. She is going to be our speaker, and she moved here with her family 4 months ago. Before that, she was a mental health officer in the IDF for 6 years in different units, and she led a group of, like a support group for veterans with post-trauma. And well, I will give you the stage. Thank you.
תודה רבה. I think we can basically speak in Hebrew, can't we?
No, we have a lot of...
Okay, I tried. Okay, so as Meitav said, Erev Tov, good evening. My name is Sarah Lee Elazar, and yeah, I moved with my family here 4 months ago for my husband's studies in St. Jude, and before that, I was a clinical social worker and mental health officer in the IDF. In different units. I won't go into it right now because each unit is very different, and every mental health officer basically switches a unit after 2 years. So there's a variety of units you actually go through. And yeah, we're going to talk a bit today about PTSD, soldiers suffering from PTSD, soldiers, veterans, and specifically in the IDF and in Israel. And before we dive into that, I think it's very important for us in context to understand who these soldiers basically are. I mean, we're talking about mandatory service in Israel, where every 18-year-old gets called to serve in the military. And if you're basically fit enough, healthy enough, you get assigned to a combat position. And maybe some of them don't really want to go into a combat position, and they kind of have to, so they find themselves in this new situation where they never really dreamt of, and kind of struggling of, okay, how am I coping with this new dangerous, complicated thing I have to do? It's also very important to understand that literature talks today about the fact that adolescence basically continues until we're about 25 to 30. So these young kids, they're 18, and I say kids because that's kind of basically how you feel when you speak to them at that age. They're still kind of like figuring themselves out and building their identity and who they are and how they cope with struggles. That's also something very new and fresh to most of them. And we do know from studies that increases massively the chances of developing PTSD if you do encounter a traumatic event. Comparing someone that is older and already kind of knows how to cope with intense or stressful events. So that's something very important to understand. These are very young adolescent kids, basically. So that's the Army, that's the IDF. We do have officers and older people, but the vast majority of the soldiers are between the ages of 18 and 21. And these are basically the ones that go into combat and the ones that end up being our patients if they are diagnosed with PTSD. So let's talk about PTSD a bit. I mean, it's a huge word. I'm sure you've heard about it, and that's something, you know, especially if you're Israeli living in Israel, it's something you can't really avoid. It's in our society very much talked about today. So PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is a condition, by the way, it doesn't have to be a soldier. It could be anyone that encountered a traumatic event which him or someone dear and close to them are near death or injury, something that could harm them. And basically, 7 to 10% of people who do encounter that kind of event are in the danger of developing PTSD. We know it about 1% of soldiers in the military are diagnosed with PTSD, and it's equivalent to the percentage of the society. So it's not very different inside the army. The main criteria a psychiatrist uses in order to diagnose PTSD are 4. The first one is avoidance. If a soldier or someone suffering after a traumatic event starts to avoid certain things, that's a very important criteria. Like a good example is a soldier going through something during military combat, and then straight away starts to avoid anything military. He won't go back to his unit. He won't be able to wear his uniform, see his commanders. Anything relating that is just something he can't cope with. Something I remember from one of my patients is avoiding anything remotely similar to the smell of smoke, because he was during combat had a situation where there was a lot of smoke around him. That was his trigger for the PTSD symptoms, and he wouldn't go to like bonfires. He couldn't participate in any like barbecue events. Like the smoke immediately would take him back to that situation. So that was a no-go for him. And so any avoidance, basically, that's a very important criteria. The second is emotional arousal. They're very jumpy, always on edge. They can snap in every like instant. Like if you say sometimes the wrong thing, if you do the wrong thing, if they get agitated in a very bad way, then they can just really lose it. It's feeling like you can't concentrate, you're angry all the time, you're anxious all the time. It's really kind of like being on edge. The third thing is what we usually call flashbacks, nightmares. It's reliving the trauma in a sense. I mean, I'm not there anymore, but certain things kind of like give me the feeling that I am. A very good example for that, if you're Israeli, you know, Purim in Israel is a very, very hard time for these guys because kids playing with the firecrackers, it's impossible for them. It straight away reminds them of gunfire and the sound and the smell. And that straight away kind of like gives them the feeling that they're reliving the event, and they feel like they're there. Like for them, they're not even in this time, this year. It could be, I don't know, maybe 30 years back to the trauma, and in an instant, they're kind of like having a flashback, and they're in, I don't know, the Suez Canal, or in Gaza, or in Lebanon, or it doesn't even matter. That's a very hard thing for them. Nightmares. If you've seen the movie that Meitav recommended, they talk about being night owls. That's because they have a big problem sleeping. Most of them don't sleep very well. So, you know, during the day, they kind of like try to cope, and then at night, everything comes rushing back to them, and they're alone and sad. And then also if they try to go to sleep, nightmares occur. And a lot of the times it can be about the traumatic event. Not a lot of people know that sometimes it's not even related to that. It can be a completely different nightmare, but they have a sense of danger, like something's going to happen to them, or they're in danger, somebody they love are in danger, and that just keeps reoccurring every night. And can you imagine how stressful that is, that even if you fall asleep to kind of like escape the day-to-day hardship, even in your nightmares, you're haunted by this experience and struggle. And it's very exhausting and frustrating for them. They can't even get a minute without kind of like breathing and having that sense of, okay, I'll be fine. So that's a very important criteria. And the fourth one is dissociation. A lot of them, when they have these flashbacks or nightmares or anxious situations, they go into themselves. They kind of like disconnect from everyone around them. They become dissociated, and it's very hard to kind of like reach out to them and call them, and they won't really communicate. They just shut down. That's a lot of and a lot of the times when the trauma occurs, a lot of them go into dissociation at the very spot. And I'll talk about it later, what we do with soldiers today to train them to help other soldiers basically snap them out of the dissociation and help them regain consciousness. So these are the four main ones. Around that, we do have a lot of, what also is related to depression and anxiety, which is being very pessimistic, not being able to think about what the future brings, how I want to develop. Furthermore, kind of like the lack of enjoyment. I can't really enjoy or have fun with the things I used to do. Like nothing is fun for me anymore. Kind of like losing function if it's work, school, losing connections, people I used to see before, family, friends. I kind of like feel that nothing is going well. So I'll stay by myself and that's it. Well, obviously it is more complicated than that, and I'm just pinpointing the major like criterias, but it's important for you to have this brief to kind of like understand how it looks.
I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
I just wonder if soldiers can, or anyone can develop PTSD, like after a while, like in a.
Okay. So there is a process. Like when the trauma occurs, if someone is struggling and having emotional difficulties, it's not called PTSD. It's called ASR, which is acute stress reaction. Okay, that's what it's called at the spot. More people, like the percentage is higher, like maybe about 30% will have ASR after a traumatic event. So, and most of them, about 20%, will regain function and normal life behaviors. And if you don't, after a month, that's called ASD, which is acute stress disorder. We already know something's going on. He's not really able, to regain his consciousness and go back to real normal life. And if we don't treat that and somehow that person still continues to have struggles after a month, we will call that PTSD. So it's not straight away PTSD. And if soldiers do have trouble, we say, it's okay. I mean, it's okay you feel bad and anxious and depressed or whatever it looks like. That doesn't mean you'll have PTSD. We still have a lot of things we can do. And also most of them regain their consciousness in a natural way. Like they have their own natural resources and strength to get over it. So, and it varies from person to person. I mean, it depends what support system they have at home, how they coped with struggles before, all these kinds of things. So it really depends on the person and the event. But yeah, PTSD will be much later in the process.
I had one more question. Does war PTSD is different in the symptoms than like other someone that had a car accident? So
according to the DSM, which is a psychiatric diagnosis book used in America and what we used in the IDF, the symptoms to diagnose are exactly the same. Comparing someone that, God forbid, was raped or was in a car accident, these are all traumas, equivalent in their, in the severity of the trauma. But it will look very much differently, and the avoidance, the flashbacks, everything is military connected. So it's very much around that. So that's basically, but the diagnosis is done the same way. So you have to answer all the criteria in order to be diagnosed. Okay. So let's kind of dive into the mental health department in the IDF and what are we used to. It's strange to me. I'm not a part of it officially anymore for about 6 months. So it's also very new to me, kind of like first Yom Hazikaron, not being with the uniform and participating in all of the Israeli events. So yeah, that's all very new to me. So basically what was called after World War I shell shock, that was when it was first determined as, this mental health issue for soldiers participating in war. Israel was far behind. I mean, we had the Independence War and Six-Day War. Still, mental health for soldiers was nothing no one ever even talked about or considered, or we were too busy fighting and kind of like trying to survive. But during second Six-Day War, מלחמת ששת הימים, that was when I think something clicked, and someone somewhere in the IDF, we're not really sure where, they said, listen, soldiers are experiencing a lot of anxiety, pressure, hardship. Something needs to be done. So they kind of like just assigned a random combat soldier, reserve soldier, which was a psychologist in like normal life. And they said, okay, you need to kind of like bounce between units and talk to the guys and see how are they doing, if they need someone to talk to. So it was all very random and strange. He was just kind of like moving from unit to unit inside the battlefield, which is crazy. And I mean, when we get like when we had like lectures about it, so the stories say that he really tried talking to soldiers. Nobody wanted to be associated with him, because in those days, being associated with like a psychologist or someone dealing with mental health issues was a huge stigma. Like, I don't want to be considered crazy or, you know, having mental health issues. So they would stay the hell away from him. There was even the story of him being like in a group with other guys and like playing the guitar and having fun. And then somebody saying, oh, this is like the psychologist guy, and in an instant everyone just, you know, get away from us, evaporated from the area, and basically that was that. After the Six-Day War, they understood that such a unit needs to be formed in the IDF, something much more official, formal. So then they started to recruit psychiatrists, mental health officers. It was very small, course, at the beginning, and throughout the years it grew and grew, due to the understanding that it's something, I mean, you can't separate a soldier's mental health from his physical health. That's the same thing. And if we're in charge of their well-being, if a mother and father sends their son or daughter into the army and into war, we want to say, you know what, we're doing our best so they come back healthy again. And healthy is mentally healthy. I mean, it's the same thing for us. So today we have about 300 mental health officers in the IDF, Navy, Air Force, and Army, military, psychiatrists, clinical social workers, psychologists, all working in different units to really ensure treatment for PTSD and also prevention, which I will talk about a bit later. Yeah, also this sense of stigma kind of like changed through the years. If before it was considered like this huge stigma and there was no way anyone would be associated with a mental health officer, it is a bit different today. It's funny because if I try to remember me in my mandatory service, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, then also I think we kind of like didn't want to be associated with a mental health officer. It was still considered kind of like weird. But my experience as being actually one is that more and more soldiers today understand the importance of getting the help you need if you do need it. And there are a lot of patients and a lot of people, you know, coming towards and saying, listen, I need help and can you help me? And I think also the Israeli society has gone through a huge change in that sense, that it's more acceptable today. You know, you don't have to be considered to be so crazy or out of normal if you do say, I was in combat and I'm not myself since coming back and I don't know what to do and I need help. If I think about my patients in the group I mentored for 2 years, they were all veterans from Yom Kippur and Six-Day War. And they never talked about the trauma. They came back and they didn't tell their parents, didn't tell their spouses, children, nothing. So for years, they kind of like were dealing with all these issues and struggles and bearing it within themselves. And to even like say, I have issues like mental issues from the war was unbearable for them to say. They didn't want to be conceived as crazy in the society, so they said nothing. I remember one of them even saying like repeatedly in our meetings that he wished he would lose a limb, kind of like come back from war without a leg or an arm, because it would be so much easier. I can see my injury or the lack of arm or leg, whatever. It has a name. People can address it. I'm a hero. I came back. I lost a leg for the country. Being kind of like struggling with mental issues, what am I going to say? Like, I was weak. I couldn't handle. There was something wrong with me. These kids were taught to be men, and men don't cry and they don't talk about their struggles. And there isn't a name to what I'm suffering from. No one said PTSD. No one said, you might be suffering from something because of this. And today we do know that it has a name, and it's equivalent to any physical injury. And it's very out there. Commanders talk about it with their soldiers. The mental health officer repeatedly has lectures and talks with the soldiers throughout the week, year. Not only during combat or war. She, we're mainly women, I must say. Not surprising. They go in the base. People know who they are. They're a well-known figure inside the unit. Soldiers see them all the time. So it's not so strange today. And it's more acceptable saying you can go to your parents and say, I'm struggling, I need help, or say, in front of your friends. And I think people are more open to it and kind of like saying, it's good for you to get help, because if not, you'll only get worse. And that's usually what happens. So today, if we think about how the IDF used to treat trauma before PTSD, it was very strange. Like, that was a cutting edge at that time. Like, after Yom Kippur War, it was very different than what we do today. Like, what they did then, they would take those soldiers right after like the combat, after like the shell shock or whatever they call it, and send them like to these sanitariums and inject them with a drug that would kind of like bring them into a situation where they're reliving the trauma, and the mental health officer would reenact with them what has happened. They have so many issues with it, like talking about it in the meetings, it brings up so many bad memories. We know today that's not the way to treat the trauma, and it, in a sense, harmed a lot of them. That wasn't the way of doing it. Making them relive it like one-to-one in a physical situation. They would like climb on things and crawl on the floor, and the mental health officer would kind of like shout at them, like he's the commander. And so that is a totally different story than what we know today is best for treating PTSD. As mental health officers, we're highly trained inside the Army. Once you're recruited, most of us are recruited like after we finish our bachelor degree. We get discharged like after mandatory service. I was recruited after 10 years being a civilian. And then you go, you start your job, but once a week for a day, you go into training. So you have school, basically how to be a mental health officer. And you're highly trained in like suicide, PTSD, crisis intervention, everything concerning that. And also highly trained in psychology, psychopathology, and we are actually trained in the three main methods today for focused therapy with PTSD, which is prolonged exposure, EMDR, and biofeedback, which I won't go into. It's a bit hard to understand and to explain, but these are the three message focused therapies we do for everyone diagnosed or having struggles after a traumatic event. So that's what we do. If we do psychotherapy, which I'm a psychotherapist, that's what I believe in combining the two. It's doing that focused therapy with a much longer form of therapy, of psychotherapy, which is based on Judith Herman's. She's one of the major researchers and writers about trauma. And she says it's about, and I'm quoting, establishing safety, remembering and mourning, okay? Reconnecting with ordinary life, processing, making the story whole. We talk about the trauma. We don't reenact it, but we talk about it in a very safe and an enabling place. We remember it together, and it's actually called post-traumatic growth. I mean, it's not insinuating that, you'll get over it or the trauma, is in the past and you'll feel better and all will be okay. I mean, this will always accompany you. This will always be a part of your life. Let's try to make it in a way where you can go back to normal life and have this thing beside you and know how to cope with it, how to mediate it to your family, spouse, children who maybe had no idea up to now that you were suffering from this kind of thing. So yeah, that's the main thing I used to do the psychotherapy together with the focus therapy. We have the יחידה לתגובות קרב. I'm not really sure how to translate it like in a, I don't know. It's a special place in the IDF where it was founded specifically for the treatment of soldiers suffering from PTSD. Like, that's the place you go to if already you've also been discharged and you're looking for help. You're not a part of the IDF anymore, but you're still, able to get the help you need. So that's where you go to. And that's where I mentored my group for 2 years. And they really specialize in doing that kind of therapy and helping these people. So, yeah.
Completely heal from PTSD?
No. And it's important to say, I mean, healing is a very complicated word. I'm not sure we can say heal, but we can say learn to live with it, minimize symptoms. I can say there was this soldier, a girl actually, that I did EMDR with, which was 12 sessions of, if you want to read about it later, you're more than welcome. It's a very known method today. It has 80% of success. And we actually succeeded in minimizing her symptoms so she could sleep at night, stop having nightmares, lowering levels of anxiety, increasing her ability to concentrate, less flashbacks, really be able to kind of regain a sense of function. But, it's kind of always there. It's something, that you will have for the rest of your life. But if you always, treat it and know how to deal with it, then, I mean, it's a complete different picture than what it had been if, untreated or kind of suppressed, which that's something we don't encourage. Yeah. So that's kind of in general, everything around treating PTSD and how it looks when it's already, diagnosed, if you've already developed it and nothing was done to kind of prevent it and help at that point. Maybe let's talk a bit about prevention. That's something I said before, that in the 6-Day War, the IDF was very kind of behind, kind of not be able to understand how to treat and what to do and even recognize such a thing. So I can probably say that today the IDF is cutting edge for sure, everything related research and treatment in PTSD. I mean, the projects being founded in the IDF are translated today in armies all around the world. And we do have an international conference every year in the IDF, having mental health officers from all around the world, like China, Germany, US, of course, coming and learning how to treat the soldiers, how to help them. I mean, what is a mental health officer? So that's something I can very much proudly say today about our job. And one of the proudest things I think that happened in the IDF in the past few years actually was founded by my ex-commanders, Vlad Svetlitsky, which is an amazing person, and he's currently doing his postdoctorate here in the US. So he invented this kind of 6-step program. It's called Magen, or Yahalom in Hebrew. It's called I Cover in English, if anyone wants to look it up later. So it has 6 basic steps that we teach combat soldiers and commanders to do in a combat, in a traumatic situation, if someone gets dissociated or can't function after a traumatic event. So מיטל can we show the סרטון, the clip? So we're going to
I will show.
show, great.
אורי, אתה מרגיש בסדר? אורי, הוא לא בטוח, תענה לי, למה אתה לא מתעורר? מה יש לך? תקשיב, אני חייב שתפס על עצמך, אורי! אנחנו באמצע קרב! מה עובר עליך? אני לא יודע, אתה גם אתה... נו! זה מזה! לא הזמן, אורי! אורי! זה מזה! זה מזה!
חובש! חובש!
מה עובר עליך? זה מהשור! תענה לי, למה אתה לא מתעורר? מה יש לך?
לך תדאג לאייל, אני איתו. לך כבר, נו! אורי, סתכל עליי. סתכל עליי, אורי. אתה שומע אותי? אני לוחץ לך את היד, תלחץ לי אותו בחזרה. אני איתך עד הסוף, אתה לא לבד. איפה עמדת?
כאן.
מי היה איתך פה?
אייל.
מי המפקד שלך?
עידו.
אורי, היינו במבנה, חטפנו טיל. אנחנו עכשיו עוזרים לפצועים. יורים עלינו, אנחנו צריכים להשיב אש. אני צריך שתיקח את הנשק שלך, תתפוס מחסה ותשיב אש בחזרה מהחלון. קדימה, קום! קום, אורי, קום!
צריך להוציא אותו
תגובת קרב הינה תגובה נפשית וגופנית ללחצי לחימה, אותה עלולים לפתח בין 10% ל-30% מהלוחמים, בהתאם לאינטנסיביות הלחימה ולכמות הנפגעים פיזית. קריסה תפקודית היא המאפיין המזוהה העיקרי לתגובת קרב. תגובת קרב אינה חולשה נפשית אישיותית או מחלה, אלא תופעה שעלולה לפגוע בכל אחד, בדומה למעצור בנשק שניתן לתפעול. התערבות מהירה ונכונה בנפגע תגובת קרב, בהתאם לשלבים שנלמדים בהכשרה זו, תסייע לו להתאושש מהר, תחזור לתפקוד ותצמצם אפשרות להתפתחות של קשיים נפשיים בעתיד. התעלמות מהתופעה או התערבות לא נכונה יגרמו לסבל מתמשך של הנפגע, ובמקרים מסוימים הן עשויות להקשות על הכוח, לחשוף אותו לסכנות ולחבל בהשלמת המשימה. לעתים תמצא את הנפגע שוכב עם הפנים כלפי מטה. תנוחה זו מחזקת תחושת חוסר אונים. לכן, כבר בתחילת ההתערבות, חשוב להנחות את הנפגע לעבור לישיבה ולעזור לו באופן פיזי, כנדרש.
אורי, קום, אורי. אורי, תסתכל עליי, אתה שומע אותי? אני לוחץ לך את היד, תלחץ לי אותה בחזרה. אני איתך אחי, אתה לא לבד. איפה עמדת?
כאן.
מי היה איתך פה?
אייל.
אורי, איך קוראים למפקד שלך?
עידו.
אורי, אנחנו היינו בתוך המבנה, חטפנו טיל, אנחנו עכשיו מטפלים בפצועים, יורים עלינו, אנחנו צריכים להשיב אש. אני צריך שתתפוס את החיפוי שלך ותשיב אש מהחלון. שמעת אותי? קח את הנשק שלך ותשיב אש מהחלון. קדימה אורי, קום.
במהלך ההתערבות יש להימנע כמה שיותר מפנייה בשפה רגשית או מרגיעה. יש לבצע את השלבים באופן סמכותי וברור, אך בשום פנים ואופן, לא אלים או תוקפני.
Okay. Are we back?
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, that's a very high quality production that actually was made in the IDF by soldiers who, that's their job. It's called like IDF theater or like free translation. I don't know. That's also what we show the soldiers and actually help them study this protocol, because that's what they actually really need to do if a situation like that occurs. And the goal is basically to increase their knowledge in how to kind of like immediately manage the situation, and also their sense of kind of like ability and like sense of self-efficiency. Like there's something I can do to help my friend, not just like scream at him like at the beginning, that other friend like snap out of it. That won't help. So these simple 6 steps usually do help these people who get dissociated to regain consciousness, which is what will help them most, and also decrease their chances of developing ASR and later on PTSD. This was actually tested after Operation Tzukaitan, Protective Edge, I think it's called. Yeah. So that's the first time, I mean, soldiers were taught how to do that. And we found that it actually helped in decreasing the development of PTSD by 50%, which is huge. And just, you know, kind of like knowing that there's something that we can do, not just sit helplessly and have these soldiers kind of like and wait and see, won't they have PTSD? And yeah, and that's something that is being practiced all around the world today, which is, I mean, amazing. So that's in the sense of prevention. Yeah.
Well, we just don't have, with the clock, of course, and we don't have that much time left.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't mind to open it for questions now.
Sure. Also, if you want to say something about the movie, I know I have a personal feeling about it. I won't mind sharing later if we have time, but kind of like whatever.
I know we have some viewers here that watch the movie. So if you have a specific question, you're welcome to get up now. This is your stage, and we have about 12 minutes for that. So go ahead. Yes, Beverly, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Beverly.
Hi, Beverly.
I'm like 4 minutes short of finishing the documentary. I was like trying to finish it when
Okay.
it started, and I was like, no, that's not right. I should just, okay. But I did have a question. So Ofer in the movie, he had said that it was like after the 1982 Lebanese war that
Yeah.
really started. So I was curious because of what you were saying about how the research started before that and how there were some mental health officers. I mean, were there already mental health officers in the IDF in 1980?
They were for sure. There were less. And also their connection inside the units weren't as strong and acceptable. I mean, even then commanders kind of like offering their soldiers to go get help or talk to someone, that just wasn't the kind of thing they do. It was like, none of my soldiers are going to get help. They're all fine, you know, this kind of like idea. And without knowing that that's actually something that's very much harmful for them and not in their best interest, but obviously not in a, you know, intentional way. So every year going by, that's something that the IDF understands more and more. And today, all combat commanders know the importance of mental health and mental health officers, and they all have strong connections with their mental health officer inside the unit. And that's something that's just side by side. So, and yeah, for sure, for them, it's a huge, I mean, regret that, you know, so many soldiers could have gotten the help they needed when they did. So, yeah, for sure.
Question, someone? If you don't have question, I have some. So I would just, if someone here didn't follow, so before the conversation, I recommended people to watch the movie When the Smoke Clears. You can watch it on Amazon Prime. I know that Sarali has a different opinion about the movie. I find it really interesting, so you can share it with us. And if you didn't watch it yet, so you can, I still highly recommend to watch it. It's a great documentary. Even after this conversation. So
yeah, it's definitely a good platform, you know, to watch for people to kind of like get the small idea of what is PTSD and how it looks, and maybe like, I don't know, start a conversation about it. But for me, it was a bit lacking in really going into the depth and complexity of the disorder. I mean, for me, it was like kind of like the guys who have obviously gone through horrendous things, kind of like talk about the trauma and then how it was hard, and like in an instant, like there was a miracle and they felt better and they regained like function, and this one is in university and this one was getting married, and like everything was magic, fine. That's not life. That's far from life. I mean, the things I've seen, the soldiers I've spoken to inside treatment, outside of treatment, it's so much more complex than that. There's no magical cure. It's not like, you know, waving a magic wand and, you have no PTSD. I mean, you know, also kind of like going from saying, today I'm smiling, I'm happy. I don't know. I'm sure that he did go through a change. I'm not, you know, I don't want to say anything about that, but I felt like the movie could have shown more what PTSD really looks like and what was the struggle along getting treatment and feeling better and gaining consciousness. I mean, it was just sometimes speaking with these guys, and I could even see it like in their eyes, and especially the youngest one there, kind of like I felt heartbroken from the things I know he's going through, and the movie just isn't showing. Like, it was very lacking in my taste, but that's okay. That's one perspective. And maybe if it would have been like a few episodes or, you know, like longer, it was like this hour thing trying to tell a story of three guys and kind of like, but yeah, so, and I don't even know, they didn't even talk about any treatment. I have no idea if they've been like treated in any way. I don't know. So if not, it sounds very strange to me. So I don't know.
Do you feel like maybe maybe some of the survivors of their trauma didn't want to be filmed in that state? I mean, I'm sure that people that are undergoing high levels of stress and like
For sure.
critical induced trauma that don't want to be shown like that or see themselves like that. And
For sure. Yeah, it's very hard, you know, kind of like letting someone that permission, seeing you in that state, and also seeing yourself reflecting in that kind of way. By the way, one of our treatments that we are taught is prolonged exposure, which actually asks our patients to film themselves while they're home. And then we talk about what we see on video and how they struggled. And I mean, that's kind of like, but for sure, for commercial like use, that's very hard. If you saw like the other thing Meitav uploaded, sorry for the question, that's amazing because you see these guys and you can feel the realness of it, like answering the hardest questions alive, like, have you ever been violent? Is someone like around you suffering from you suffering? How does your life look? Can you act normal? Two of the guys there, the older ones, Chaim and Chaim, they were in my group that I mentored, which I cherish deeply. And they have so many stories for them, kind of like trying to deal with life. And they were very violent and on edge a lot of the time, not really good fathers. That's all things that they talk about. And basically having their lives very much ruined by this thing. So that's the realness of it to me, not like kind of like the Hollywood story of, you know, I had this thing, I got better, and now I'm fine. I mean, it's a long process and a very painful one. And a lot of pain is involved, and that's something, in my opinion, needs to be showed. They deserve it, you know? That's kind of like the respect of saying, we know it's a horrible thing, and we don't want to take from that. Like, we want to understand the fullness of the struggle.
Well, Beverly, for your question, I can connect between you two, and okay. And you can ask that later. I think it's a little bit better.
You can always email me. I don't know, maybe Meitav can kind of like leave my email or whatever and ask whatever you want. Feel free anytime.
Yeah, I will connect between you two. I had a question. So we were talking a lot about how the IDF is making effort to kind of, you know, be more like treat that better and like, you know, I wonder if you see these efforts in the society as well.
To accept people struggling with PTSD?
Like, is that like to create more awareness?
like address it.
Because, yeah, address it. Because eventually, you know, the soldiers are not, they can't stay dependent, like they're not dependent in the IDF. Eventually they finish, especially after that, it's probably when they will go back to their life. And that's when it becomes harder because in the IDF, people were with you in the war, people like, that's just what it is. And then in the society, it's the society, it's the life. People don't know that you were a soldier with PTSD.
So I think it's always easier not to deal. I mean, considering any, by the way, mental health issue, it can be like, I don't know, postpartum depression, anxiety, whatever. So also with PTSD, I think that there is a change that today, these are also conceived as people who were hurt in war, in combat. And we do have a responsibility towards them. That's why such a show as Slicha L'She'ela, it was basically, you know, something that's legitimate, listening to these guys saying how much they're struggling, how much they're accepted. In my opinion, not enough. I mean, they still have to struggle a lot with kind of like proving themselves and, you know, that they're not crazy or mentally ill. Definitely better than before, but we still have a long way as a society for truly accepting and kind of like, you know, giving them the respect they deserve. So I think it will still be a long process. I mean, we're only 72 years old, so we'll see.
Someone else has a question, I will ask the last question here. And then it's your chance.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just something else that I'm interested in is that we were talking about how we prepare soldiers during their military service, and I know that a lot of the process of like joining the military, you're going through in high school. So
Yeah.
a lot of like teens that are preparing to the military, they're in some way kind of also preparing to the idea that maybe something will happen to them. Maybe
Yeah.
they hurt. Mothers are thinking, and it's terrible, but that's something that we kind of learn how to live with. And I wonder if you see today as something that people consider, like not just the physical injury, like.
So a huge part of a mental health officer's job is also during like the last year of high school and kind of like recruitment process is to kind of like screen who's suitable for combat and who isn't. So they come to the recruitment's office, they go through tests and talks, and a lot of them do talk to a mental health officer. That's actually what I did in my last unit. I was there at the recruitment's office, and whoever couldn't, I couldn't see being in combat and like being, if you can say that, like mature enough or able enough, then was assigned into different things. I think what does protect a lot of them is still that kind of like fantasy about the whole thing. You're in this age where you can be given a gun, a rifle, and you go fight the bad guys. That's something that a lot of them find very exciting. And, you kind of like grow up in this kind of like environment. And, it is part of who we are. We have an army and we need to defend ourselves. And that's what being 18 means. And then they actually go into the army and suddenly reality, kind of like crashes in, and they understand it's maybe not such a fantasy as they thought it is. Like, it's very hard. They go through a lot of ups and downs. Some of them don't finish their training. They get kind of like moved. So we do a lot around that, trying to help whoever isn't fit find themselves in different places, and help those who are fit, but kind of like realizing it's not, they're not going to be Rambo as they thought they're going to be, like how to adjust and how to cope with it. And kind of like, that's a lot of the times I used to tell them, that's what being an adult means. I mean, there's what I dreamt of, I thought of, and then there's reality and how I adjust to that and kind of like cope with it. And they do mature a lot during their military service. They start from something and end up in a very different position, and they grow up a lot. And that's definitely part of that. So that's something I can say positive towards that process. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you so much. I learned so much.
Sure.
Everyone else here learned a lot. Now it's 58, and in 2 minutes we're gonna continue to the ceremony part. I didn't say it in the beginning, but I don't know if everyone here knows the meaning of Yom Hazikaron in Israel. It's one of the most important. There are not a lot of national holidays in Israel, and this is one of the most important days in Israel. And usually we mention it with ceremonies. I don't think there are many people that will not be a part of a ceremony in the evening of Yom Hazikaron, if it's watching on TV or going to like the municipality ceremony or anything else. Created our small community ceremony here. The ceremony is going to start with a sign of silence, really in like 2 minutes. And it's gonna go for like 20 minutes. It's going to be in Hebrew, but we have 20. No. And to wait, I forgot to say. It's going to be in Hebrew, but we're going to have English presentation, time for everyone to read. So I really appreciate if you can stay for this 20 more minutes, 20, 30 more minutes to take and honor the fallen soldiers. Thank you so much. Sarli, and I'm just going to set up the presentation.
מיטב, רואים את הנר?
כן.
אוקיי.
אוקיי. לשמיעת הצפירה, הקהל מתבקש לעמוד. היום, ערב יום הזיכרון, אנחנו מתייחדים עם זכרם של 26,969 גיבורינו, חללי צבא ההגנה לישראל ונפגעי פעולות האיבה, אשר חירפו נפשם למען המשך קיומה של מדינת ישראל, ובמותם ציוו לנו את החיים. In this point, we will probably ask you to stand. It's in the presentation, but I see that it's hard on Zoom, so you can just remain sitting.
יזכור עם ישראל את בניו ובנותיו, הנאמנים והאמיצים, חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל, בכל לוחמי המחתרות וחטיבות הלוחמים, במערכות העם, בכל אנשי קהילת ישראל, הביטחון והמשטרה, אשר חירפו נפשם על תקומת ישראל, וכל אלה שחירפו בארץ שלה בידי מרצחים ובני התורה. יזכור ישראל, ברח בזכות, ויבא להחזיק בחמדת הגבורה, בקדושת הרצון ומסירות הנפש, אשר נספו במערכה הכבדה. יהיו גיבורי מערכות ישראל, עטורי הניצחון, חתומים בלב ישראל לדור ודור.
אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים, חמצי מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים טהורים וגיבורים, כזוהר הרקיע מאירים ומזהירים. לנשמות הקדושים שנלחמו בכל מערכות ישראל, במחתרת ובצבא ההגנה לישראל, ושנפלו במלחתם ומסרו נפשם על קדושת השם העם והארץ. בעבור שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם, להחל בעל הרחמים, יעשה תירם בסדר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם, אדוני הוא נחלתם. בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותם, ועמדו לגורלם לקץ הימין, ונאמר אמן.
יכול לשבת. אני מזמינה את רעות וענונו להדליק נר זיכרון לנופלים בשם הקהילה. תודה.
מי שברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל, העומדים על משמר ארצנו והרי אלוהינו, בגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים ומן הים הגדול, עד לבוא הערבה, ביבשה, באוויר ובים. ייתן אדוני את אויבינו הקמים עלינו ניגפים לפניהם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה ומכל נגע ומחלה. יפתח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם. ידבר שונאינו תחתיהם ויעטרם בכתר ישועה ועצרת ניצחון. ויקוים בהם הכתוב, כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם להילחם לכם עם אויביכם, להושיע אתכם ונאמר אמן.
ב-1974, כשטוראי בני, בנימין פרנק, היה בן 19, הוא נהרג בתאונת אימונים במהלך שירותו הצבאי. בחייו הקצרים הספיק בני לכהן כיושב ראש מועצת התלמידים של התיכון, להיות פעיל חברתי ולשלוח ידו בכתיבה. לצד מאמרים פוליטיים שחלקם פורסמו, הקפיד בני לכתוב שירים למגירה. עם מותו נפתחה המגירה, נמצאו בה שירים רבים, ובהם השיר שלחי אותו. 37 שנים אחרי מותו, הגיע השיר לידיה של הזמרת רוני דלומי, אשר בחרה לבצע אותו במסגרת הפרויקט עוד מעט נהפוך לשיר של גלי צה"ל. השיר, שככל הנראה נכתב על אהבה נכזבת, קיבל משמעות מצמררת לאחר מותו של בנימין. שלחי אותו, תני לו ללכת לחופשי, אף כי יודעת שלא ישוב אלייך. אל תתעצבי עוד, כי הוא הלך כציפור לדרור. שובי לימי החול, כי את יודעת, אהובך לא יחזור עלייך.
כי הוא הלך ציפור לדרור. לחזור אלייך, שלחי אותו, תני לו ללכת למקומו, לשיבולים הכפופות ברוח.
מותו בא לי פתע, ומאז הצער מעוות את נשמתי. חוסר הביטחון והחרדה בועטים במעי, והפחד ששוב לא יכול להיות טוב חונק את גרוני. ובמשך השנים אני מבינה שהמפסיד האמיתי בינינו הוא זה שאני כל כך אוהבת, כי הוא לא ראה את הילד שלנו הולך לכיתה א', והוא לא היה שם ביום חתונתו, ולא היה שם להתרגש ביחד איתי כשנולדה הנכדה שלנו. אני נשבעת, אין יום שעובר בלי שחשבתי עליו, אני זוכרת ומריחה אותו כאילו נפגשנו היום. מילותיה של עמית אלדר, אלמנתו של רב סרן נתנאל אלדר, זיכרונו לברכה. נתנאל נפל ב-1980 והיה בן 25 במותו. הוא השאיר אחריו אישה ובן ניתאי שנולד 6 חודשים לאחר מותו.
אלעד קרוג ואחיו הבכור יובל גויסו שניהם למילואים ערב מלחמת 6 הימים. אלעד פיקד על פלוגה של חטיבת הראל. באחד מהלילות פלוגתו הותקפה ואלעד אשר מיהר לרוץ לחלץ פצוע תחת הירי, חטף אש ונפצע באופן אנוש. כשניגש אליו החובש, ביקש ממנו אלעד קודם כל לטפל בחייל אחר שנפצע לא הרחק ממנו. עד שהחובש חזר לטפל בו, הוא מת מפצעיו.
אמא שלי שנהגה לספר שבזמן ההכנות למלחמה, היא חלמה שמגיע אליה אדם שמזכיר לה את אליהו הנביא. מספרת אחותו הצעירה חמי. הוא החזיק ביד 2 נעליים, גדולה וקטנה. הנעל הגדולה הייתה אחי הגדול יובל, והקטנה הייתה אחי הקטן אלדד. הוא ביקש ממנה לבחור נעל. היא לא הסכימה, אבל הוא התעקש. היא בחרה לבסוף בנעל הקטנה. אמא תמיד הרגישה שהקריבה את אלדד והאשימה את עצמה בכך שהוא נהרג. כל השנים היא חזרה לחלום הזה, זה חלק ממה שעובר על כל הורה שכול. קשה וכואב להמשיך לחיות עם זה, וזה ליווה אותה כל חייה.
הפזמונאית רחל שפירא, שלמדה עם קרוג בכיתה, בחרה להנציח אותו בשיר שלימים הפך לאחד מהשירים המזוהים והמרגשים ביותר של יום הזיכרון.
ויקונן דוד את הקינה הזאת על שאול ועל יונתן בנו, ויאמר, הצבי ישראל על במותיך חלל, איך נפלו גיבורים. אל תגידו בגת, אל תבשרו בחוצות אשקלון. פן תשמחנה בנות פלישתים, פן תעלוזנה בנות הערלים. הרי בגלבוע על תער ועל מטל עליכם, ושדי תרומות. כי שם נגאל מגן גיבורים, מגן שאול, בלי משיח בשמן, מדם חללים. מחלב גיבורים, קשת יונתן לא נסוג אחור, וחרב שאול לא תשוב ריקם. שאול ויונתן, הנאהבים והנעימים בחייהם, ובמותם לא נפרדו. מנשרים קלו, מאריות גברו. בנות ישראל, אל שאול בחינה, המלבישכם שני עם עדנים, המעלה עדי זהב על לבושכם. איך נפלו גיבורים בתוך המלחמה, יונתן על במותיך חלל. צר לי עליך, אחי יונתן, נעמת לי מאוד, נפלאתה אהבתך לי מאהבת נשים. איך נפלו גיבורים, ויובדו כלי מלחמה.
Okay, you couldn't see the video, right? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna share it now again. I'm sorry.
בספטמבר 2000 התפוצץ בין מקבל ברחוב קרעים במושב הגרמני בירושלים. 7 אנשים נרצחו בפיגוע, ובהם נידו ביטון נאווה. הייתה להיצא לאחר דוד אבא, שבינו שינוי במצבים הכי קשים. הוא הקים רפואיים בהדבקה קולית לילדים. בוקר יום אחד היא באה במחלקה כדי לחלוק את הילדים בהם לה. הם חיברו גשם. היא
דניאל, לא יכולנו לשמוע אותך, אז אני אקריא את זה. בספטמבר 2003 התפוצץ מחבל מתאבד בתוך בית הקפה הלל שברחוב עמק רפאים במושבה הגרמנית בירושלים. 7 אנשים נרצחו בפיגוע, ובהם דוד וביתו נאווה, שהייתה אמורה להינשא יום לאחר מכן. דוקטור דוד אפלבאום וביתו נאווה לא חששו מאתגרים, והאמינו ששינוי יכול להופיע גם במצבים הכי קשים. הוא הקים את שירותי החירום הרפואיים בארץ, והיא התנדבה במחלקה האונקולוגית לילדים. לבוקר יום החתונה היא תכננה מסיבה במחלקה עצמה, כדי לחלוק את שמחתה עם הילדים בהם טיפלה. הם חיכו לה בבוקר, נרגשים, אך היא לא הגיעה.
מי ייתן ואהיה כבר זקן, מבולבל. אם אז אשאל, למה הוא לא בא לבקר? אל תאמרו, אבל הוא נפל. לפני המון זמן. אמרו הוא היה פה אתמול, ואמר שיבוא גם מחר. נכתב על ידי גיורא פישר, אבא של מרום משה פישר, זכרו לברכה. מרום נפל בג'נין, במבצע חומת מגן, ב5 באפריל 2002, בן 19 במותו.
ליל כוכבים הסעלה, את שם יושבת בוהה באפלה, שעה חולפת יום ושנה, ואת עדיין לא מחכה. שעה חולפת יום ושנה, עודך עובדת שבויה באמונה. את פרי גנך תבקשי, מילך יומם ומילך ישיר, מרכבך רודפים הימים, נותרת לבדך, רוצה להאמין שהנה קרבה אותה השעה, שבה הבטיח לשוב בחזרה, שהנה קרבה אותה השעה, שבה הבטיח לשוב בחזרה. בדומיה עוטפת התוגה, ובליבך נותרה משאלה, שעה חולפת יום ושנה, ואת עדיין לא מחכה שעה חולפת יום ושנה עוד איך זוכרת ולא מאמינה ואת פרי גנך תבקשי מילך יאמר ומילך ישיר מרכבך רודפים הימים נותרת לבדך רוצה להאמין שהנה קרבה השעה שבה הבטיח לשוב בחזרה שהנה קרבה אותה השעה שבה הבטיח לשוב בראשה
שירת התקווה, קהל מתבקש לעמוד. Thank you everyone for joining us. תודה רבה לכולם, תודה רבה לכל המשתתפים. תם הטקס.